You're gonna start?
Yeah, I'll start. All right, what up? What up? You're listening tuned in from James and Mike at WICR. I'm Mike.
I'm James.
All right, and judging by the title, you can tell we have a pretty weird topic. James
I'm
brought it up.
so excited. My two favorite things.
The question is, could Kanye be Batman?
My favorite things. I love talking about crazy people and talking about how awesome they are for like being crazy. It's great. I'm so excited today. How have you been since we last talked? Since the last show? What's new with you? Give like some. All right, ready? Let's hit breaking news. What's up with you?
Okay, well,
Personal life.
I finished the Kanye documentary. We're going to talk about it later today in the show. It's going to be all great. It's going to be all good. I didn't see the Batman, to my dismay and heartbreak, because plans just fall through and stuff like that. However, I've been reading about it on Twitter, trying not to get spoiled still, just hoping I see it. And I've already heard about plans for the villains in the sequel. And as a huge Batman fan, I'm already looking to the next thing and I'm super hype.
Yeah, we'll keep when we talk. We'll talk spoiler free reviews.
All
You
right.
know, I won't spoil anything big.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, honestly, same thing with me. That's been a lot of I was kind of on a bit of a media bender. Music recommendations, albums. Listened to Camp, Childish Gambino. Not a big Childish Gambino fan. Speaking of people with double identities, yeah, like within recent months, like probably like a good couple months ago, or at least like senior year of high school, Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, same person.
And remember, they're both hugely accomplished. I mean, if you want to go the whole alter ego route, Donald Glover is a terrific actor. I think Atlanta is like in its third season, I want to say. It's been getting rave reviews. And then Donald Glover also been in Star Wars. He played Lando Calrissian Solo. So I mean, he's got his accolades. I'm giving him his roses. Childish Gambino. I remember when This Is America came out.
I did, and I actually wasn't even a fan when I first started.
You weren't a fan?
No.
How were you not a fan?
I was in a weird place, but like not like I should appreciate it.
Now you appreciate the genius.
Now I know. Yeah, well, the genius, and I think, like I said, I had no idea they were the same person for so long. Like because I had always seen one like with facial hair and one without facial hair. So I was always just like, oh, like I guess they're a different person. And I was like, if they're the same person, then people would call them by the same name.
I just want to make sure like Eminem and like Slim Shady are like the same person.
No, I knew him, but I heard the song. Like I always heard the song growing up as a kid. Like so, I was good there. Like, yeah, no, but it is funny because I saw on Instagram a really funny thing that was like, to everyone, because of course, let's get into Batman. Whenever you talk about like superheroes, a lot of them have secret identities, and the biggest like everyone clowns on superheroes for like, oh, the ultimate slam dunk is like I would know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I can say without a doubt 100% would not know. Didn't know that like Donald Glover, and so like someone who actually went out of their way to like protect their secret identity, I'd never know. Like I died never knowing that like Bruce Wayne would ever be Batman.
That makes me think, if anyone's seen the animated superhero show Invincible on Amazon Prime, still on season 2, by the way, Adam Eve is one of the superheroes, and she goes to actually Mark Grayson's, aka Invincible's high school, and Mark asks, "How come I've never noticed you before?" And she says, "It's a psychological thing. If you don't expect to see a superhero at your high school, you'll never see one." She doesn't wear a mask or anything like that, so that always just stuck with me.
Yeah, like it's because you never think about it, and of course we all probably think that we're like those super geniuses who would be able to like pinpoint like this, and that. But I don't think I ever would, because like I don't know, like it's crazy. Although you'd probably have like someone would know. I think it would end up being like a marshmallow thing where like I would never know, but like someone would figure out and then just like tweet it, and then at that point everyone would be like, all right, we're pretty sure we know who it is.
Yeah, that reminds me. It's also like I remember reading or watching Batman media in The Dark Knight. One of the guys that works at Wayne Tech, he goes into some old files and sees files for like the Tumblr, aka like the Batmobile in that universe, and tries to blackmail Lucius Fox, who works on all the tech for Batman. Says, "I want $1 million for the rest of my life." And Lucius Fox, played by Morgan Freeman, leans in and says, "So your plan is to blackmail a person that you believe dresses up as a vigilante bat and beats criminals to a bloody pulp every night." And he just goes, It's like, so even if you know, it's not you knowledge really doesn't help you in that. Like I think, and also another Batman comic, the Riddler discovers his secret identity, and then Batman explains to the Riddler, like the only riddles that matter to you is the one where only you know the answer. So he kind of trapped him. Like the Riddler's never going to reveal because then everyone knows. Then the Riddler isn't special to himself anymore. So it's not if you get past the knowing part, it's not even guaranteed that like, oh, you're going to leak his secret and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like that. And also then you have to now, like, it's one thing to say it, but then you have to convince everyone. So going back to the Kanye thing that I saw where it was like you have to convince people. Because like Bruce Wayne, like in the comics and in everything like that, is pretty much like the closest real life counterpart we could get would have to be someone like Kanye. Like someone who is just known for being like crazy. You'd then have to convince like the entire public that like no, no, no. Like, I swear, this is the really serious guy who cares about like justice and like is trained from like the mountains and like, you know, is financing like all of these high tech gadgets and like is staying in like you'd have to convince those people. But finally, getting into Batman, let's pivot all the way in because I've danced around it enough. Spoiler free review. I'm not gonna. You don't have to watch it.
Thank you.
Came out opening weekend. I'll be fair. Okay. I wasn't even sure I was going to see it. I had 1, 2, 3 movies queued up just in case.
I forgot about 1, 2, 3 movies.
Just in case, or allegedly had 1, 2, 3 movies queued up. Did not actually partake in the website, nor do I recommend. But it came out opening weekend. Really good.
Yeah,
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I was kind of like everyone was kind of on the fence when Robert Pattinson was announced as Batman because everyone says, "Oh, he's not really built. He's actually a little scrawny." But seeing the trailers and seeing people's like perception about him, I'm like, this might be like the Batman. Like this guy's the real deal.
I will say he does have like, believe it or not, there's not a scene of him like shirtless working out in the ring.
No,
but there is like every once in a while like you do get like the shots. I will say he is like he looks normal. You know what I mean? He doesn't look like every other Hollywood actor who like you're like, okay, like you're taking steroids. Like you're obviously like not, there is no plausible way that I will ever be able to look like that. He doesn't look like The Rock. He really does just look like a guy who works out. But and I'm gonna like hardcore like I'm gonna kiss the boot a little bit. I think it works, and I think a lot of people came after his interpretation of Bruce Wayne. But I think it works because you have to keep in mind that this Batman story that Matt Reeves was trying to tell, he like time and time again was like, I'm not making a story that is gonna fit in to the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
I'm not making a story that is going to be able to connect to Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker. He was like, I'm going to tell my story of Batman and the way that it fits in my box that I made. So he is doing, this is Batman's second year. So this is like early, like still learning what Batman is. And I feel like that's why a lot of people come after like, oh, well, I feel like there isn't like a very good like, you know, I can't ever tell when he's like trying to be Bruce Wayne and when he's trying to be Batman. But it's like, no, like as you watch the movie, like he's figuring it out. Like he doesn't even know which one is like which and which one like he really is. But I think it works really well in telling a story of like this is really early. So like you want to watch him like do all of these really crazy cool things, and he does it. But then there's also scenes where like he's terrified. Like you can see like every once in a while there's a scene where like he'll just be like and you're like actually like, oh my gosh, I forgot like you're just some guy. He's like in his 30s and like wearing a bat costume. Like of course you're gonna be scared before you like.
Yeah. Who was in Harry Potter, by the way? Like Robert Pattinson was in Harry Potter in Twilight, and now he's just, you know, he's choking out the Riddler, punching Penguin, you know, fighting Catwoman, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, huge cast, huge ensemble, and everyone's so good. So it's a 3-hour film. It is 3 hours. Like I'm gonna warn you, it's 3 hours.
Probably should pee before you see it. Like, you know,
I opted to not even like get a drink. Like, you know what I mean? I know like whenever it's movie theaters especially, like the first 2 sips of Sprite, I'm already like, Gonna have to like get up during the most boring scene.
Might have to use this cup in a different type of way.
I might have to call Dwayne. But it was 3 hours. But I feel like me and everyone else that I've talked to about it, we were all really invested in the film, so it doesn't feel like 3 hours. Like it's 3 hours well needed because of how much like plot is in it. Like nothing feels rushed, but in order to not rush its way through the entire plot, you're gonna have to hold in for the 3 hour runtime, which is difficult for some people. Like that's a commitment.
I personally think DC should just stick with their standalone films. Don't try and make a universe of everything. Not everything has to be connected. Because I think their solo movies, where it's just set in their own universe, Batman, Superman, Never Gonna Meet, have been their best movies by far. Because in this whole DC universe, it's very convoluted. You have Justice League, Dawn of Justice, Justice League Zack Snyder cut, Wonder Woman 1984, this, that, and this, where you have like a amazing movie like Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker, amazing movie. That Joker will never interact with anyone else from DC, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't even want that movie to have a sequel because I just want that to be the one grounded story. Now we have this Batman. I'm seeing people compare it to The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is like the one. That's the one Batman movie where it's just a great movie. I've seen the The Dark Knight probably like 200 times, and every single time I watch it, I learn something new or find something like I like more than the previous time I watched it. Like with the MCU, we're all spoiled. Like I know which MCU movies are gonna come out 4 years from now. Like I'm already thinking about post credit scenes and stuff like that. I'm more hyped for the Fantastic Four movie that's gonna happen like 2026 than I am for like Multiverse of Madness. We're spoiled. Like we gotta just be in the present. We can't keep on looking to the future with these movies.
Yeah, and I think that sort of plays in how we, like you as like a consumer, does have impact on like all of these things that are coming out. Because if we like kept choosing to like just keep watching like the same old like the DC, like we were just gonna keep watching them like push out like a movie and some convoluted like plot just so they could catch up. Like the fact that people like go watch the movie and then go like love this movie if you really want like them to just make good movies. Like if you keep telling them
Mhm.
and you keep telling, and the same thing happened with Star Wars. When people were like, wait a minute, like these Star Wars movies aren't good. Like I want better movies. No one watched Solo, and that's when Star Wars was like, all right, we're
Yeah.
gonna stop every movie that we had planned to coming out. Like we're gonna stop it because now like people are like upset with the movies and they're not watching them. Like now like our bottom dollar is starting to get hit, and now like we have really good Star Wars projects coming out and projects that are made with passion, and you can feel like this movie was like made to be a movie.
Yeah.
And that's where like I have to agree with you, where like we just have to start accepting that like even with Marvel made the individual movies. Like they just made Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like they just were like, we're gonna get Iron Man made and like deal with that. And then we're gonna make like another movie and then like a couple of hints. And like now we're in the point where like, there's all these convoluted connected stories and this and that. But I think for now, for DC, because I really want to see the DC universe come together. I really think that we deserve that, and like that is what we need. But you're right. We have to stomach
Yeah.
knowing that the Joker, like Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker, is going to have to just be in his own box and may never interact with like the Robert Pattinson Batman. Even though you like those two characters, you just have to stomach like, okay, we need them to start taking these movies seriously. So we're gonna have to just deal with the groundwork.
If I'm being entirely honest, the only like DC universe I'd like to see is honestly the animated universe. DC's anime movies have been better than most of the live action ones, if I'm being honest. I remember as a kid watching like Justice League Unlimited, Superman the animated series, Batman the animated series, and those are all phenomenal. Like Batman the Mask of the Phantasm is an animated Batman movie. And if you're a real hardcore Batman nerd, you say that's your number one pick. That's just how it is. You say that's better than Dark Knight, better than the Batman. I'm sorry. Like that's the only one I want to see because it's simple. It's Saturday morning cartoons. And even think about how complicated the DC movies have gotten. So we had two different Justice League movies and two different Suicide Squad movies. it's like every movie needs like a disclaimer before it starts. Like, oh no, this takes place here. It gets rid of this, but then it's also in an alternate timeline. It's like it's too much.
Yeah, like there's just not. Yeah, it's a lot because it takes a lot of planning. But speaking of our favorite rich people doing rich people things, the Kanye documentary, third part came out. I watched it, broken up. I couldn't sit through the whole thing in one go. There was a lot.
There was a lot.
I got busy, and it was really long. It was good though,
Yeah.
and it really makes you think. It also makes you like, because I like a lot of the Kanye, but I really haven't. Besides like his craziest interviews, I don't think I've ever heard Kanye just like sit down and like speak. And this whole documentary is just him like emptying his brain.
So the one thing I realized, like after watching part 3, is one, Cootie was in Kanye's corner for a good 30 years. And you realize every time Kanye needed Cootie, Cootie got on like the next flight the next day. I think Cootie must have gotten on a plane 18 times in that 3-part documentary. Not once did Kanye ever like, let me go see Cootie. It's always Cootie's like, well, Kanye needed me in Tokyo, so next thing I know, I'm in Tokyo. Like I'm designing Yeezys with him and recording and stuff like that. Also, the third one honestly wasn't the most satisfying conclusion because like it felt like it was wrapping up. Okay, the story is starting. The curtains are closing. All that. It's like, oh nope, Kanye just said slavery is a choice, and then it's like, or then Kanye is crying, and then he's announcing he's running for president. Like the story kept on going and going. It felt like a run-on sentence, but that's real life. That's just how Kanye is. He's an ever-evolving story. Like he'll just never be like, and scene. It's never gonna end.
Yeah, literally, like to quote the documentary, when Cootie was like walking with him with the Yeet, or they were walking around, and they were like, "Wait, didn't you start filming this documentary like 20 years ago?" And he's just like, "Yeah, we didn't finish yet." And like that's how it is, because like it really is someone's life, but also like, special place in my heart. So like we're gonna touch on like all of the weird Kanye. Um, that's who he is. Like he really hasn't stopped. Like shout out to, like, that has to be an enormous amount of pressure, an enormous amount of, to consistently for how many years now, like he's still producing, he's still making like absolute great songs, and he's still like relevant. Like not only is it difficult to get noticed, like as we saw in the first part, he still finds a way to like not just have people be like, oh yeah, like he's a has-been or like a wash-bin, or been like, oh yeah, like Jesus Walks was good, but like what has he had since then? And you have like, oh, I miss the old Kanye, or like back when he did. But like listen, did I like Easy? No. Did I like Donda? Kind of. Was City of Gods pretty good?
It was pretty good.
Like it was. And I feel like the fact that he can still like go for like 20 years, he's been producing these original like game-changing things, and is still like, yeah, I have like a couple more projects in the works, like I have some things going on in the background. Like that's really impressive, like just from a creative standpoint, like to be able to do this much in that like short of time, and then in that long of time, considering like attention span, like it's crazy.
So I've been thinking, you said, could Kanye be Batman? And if you know anything about Batman, there's like a million different characters. So I'm thinking Pete Davidson's gotta be the Joker, right? Like if we're making a Kanye Batman hybrid, it's probably Kanye Batman, Pete Davidson Joker, Kim Kardashian Catwoman, Kid Cudi Robin. Who's gotta be Alfred?
Cootie.
Yeah, I get that makes sense.
Because he was always like, yeah, Kanye's like my little brother. Cootie would be his Alfred. Like his always like, he may not always say that he likes him,
but he's in the corner every time.
He'll always be there. And you're right, that was so wholesome, especially in the second part when Cootie was basically just like, yeah, and then he stopped talking to me.
Yeah, it's just like they fell off, and then you remember like when he's in the studio, it's like they're like, I think like this towards the end of the second part, he's filming for someone else, and Kanye just happens to be in the studio. He takes the camera over to Kanye, and Kanye goes like this. It's like that's the first time Kanye ever wanted me to take the camera off of him. You could tell that they just kind of like fell off. They're no longer in Chicago now. Kanye's making songs, he's making controversy. While Cootie was actually like making movies, like he was putting his works with the camera to. I think we saw I think it was on like the red carpet or some sort of premiere for a movie that he made. And also, if you want to talk Cootie, I think Netflix paid him him and someone else around $30 million for that footage, for that Kanye footage to make the documentary.
Wow. Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, Cootie knows his stuff definitely, and a lot of people, like a lot of rappers, tweeting like, "Oh, now I need Cootie to do my life story," because they saw how well it was
That's the
put
guy who
together.
made Jesus Walks. Like, oh my god, I know him. Yeah. No, I think that was really wholesome too. Like, I'll be honest, I had no idea who Cootie was
No.
like, going into this, but once I like really understood like who he was and like what he was doing, there was in like the first part when it was like the first 10 minutes of it is just Cootie talking about his life. And you're watching this and you're like, isn't this a story about like Kanye? Like, why am I listening to you? What an absolute game changer. By the time the third one came around, he's talking about Ivy, like his daughter. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, Ivy has to make it. I'm like into it. I'm like gripping my seat. I'm like, oh my gosh, like Ivy is like being born and like Cootie is a kid now. And I'm like, oh, she's adorable, to the point where I was like invested.
Yeah.
Like, I really did not think Cootie was going to talk about Kanye for the rest of the documentary, but like I really was interested in this character.
Yeah, it's like also one
Person, not character.
you totally could
real.
just go Google that, because that happened like 20 years ago. Probably could have read a couple Wikipedia articles and been caught up to speed, but you were invested. Now, if you gotta talk Kanye, we gotta talk about like the song "Easy." It just recently had a music video drop.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? It's very weird. It's very like you know what claymation is? Yeah, it's all claymation. It looks like Robot Chicken, if I gotta be honest.
Oh, okay.
And Kanye West kidnaps, decapitates, and buries the head of a claymation Pete Davidson. So thoughts?
Did I see it? I'm trying to think if I ended up.
I mean, what are you getting confused with? I mean, how many things do you watch that are like that?
No, I'm just okay. Yeah, it's not. I'll be honest. This whole Pete thing. Not to play into the old stereotype, but like Kanye's a little like Kanye, you know? Like,
Yeah.
am I glad he's doing this whole thing with Pete? Like, no, like not at all. But to be fair, like there's a lot of things that Kanye says that I don't particularly agree with, that I don't partake in, but I'm still gonna like appreciate everything he does as like an artist. Like this is the best way I can explain my relationship with Kanye. I really like Jesus Walks.
Yeah.
You can play it anytime, and I will 100% bump.
I wish I played it in church.
I will never go to church, and I'm very sorry. And I know, like, you can say, like, well, that's the whole point of the song. Like, that's why Kanye made like Jesus Walks, which says it's like really like this and that. Like, I just feel like he can say like one thing, but I can appreciate the music as like a completely other thing. You know, like I may not be for all of that, like, you know, like Bible stuff that he does. And I know that Jesus Walks has like very religious undertones in it. I like the song because I like the song. I don't like it because I'm like, oh yeah, this like really like converted me back into my religious ways. Like, it just has a really nice beat, you know, and the lyrics are good. Like, I can appreciate it. And that's what the whole like Pete thing now, where it's like, I have been a Kanye fan for like a while now. If I really got hooked up on every little thing that he said, I'd never listen to any of his songs. After a while, like, you just have to be like, like, yeah, he's being a little weird. But this is something that I really did want to talk about. At what point though, because you really watched this documentary and they sort of like touch and go, and then there's a little like, you can tell like they didn't want to paint. The documentary made Kanye in the best light possible. It really, even when it showed like his faults and his missteps, you kind of watched it and were like, okay, like they weren't trying to like really show him doing anything like bad. Like, everything was like, oh yeah, like Kanye was really sad, but also like this and that. Like, it painted him in the best light possible. Like, every criticism seemed to always like pull its punch, and every like good thing he did always seemed elevated. And to be fair, like it was made by Cootie, like it was his best friend. Obviously Cootie wasn't gonna like, you know, have anything bad, but the points that I thought really stuck out were all of his mental health bits.
Yeah, those were rough to watch. Those are really bad.
Really crazy. And I didn't even know, like, I didn't know he actually like went and got like help and like therapy. And that was crazy to see, like someone as big and as powerful as like Kanye West needing to like break down and have a therapist, like that was huge. That
Yeah,
was huge.
yeah, and it's just like a general thing, like, hey, man, like if you're feeling something, if you're feeling negative, whether you're Kanye or random guy on the street, seek help. That's all I gotta say on that. And it was really, really bad because you can see, it's like every like symptom of bipolar depression and just regular depression. Kanye is like was exhibiting, like pushing friends away, being erratic, you know, taking things a certain type of way. It was just really, really hard, crushing, honestly, to see one of your heroes kind of like fall. But I mean, he's risen to an extent. I don't want to say he's completely where he was at one point, and I don't think he ever will be for that matter. But new music's on the way. Most of the music's good. I'll admit. Wasn't feeling most of the songs on the Donda 2 listening party, but the really good ones were obviously amazing. So I mean, God, I just hope that he keeps on seeing therapy, he keeps on taking his medication, and life just works out for him.
And this is really where, especially with someone like Kanye, and I'm gonna just like I'm gonna stand that speak a little from the heart. I really, really do hope we get to a place where we can eliminate like the stigma of mental health.
Mhm.
Like I think Kanye is one of the best examples of showing like what not to do. Like, and not just in terms of like, oh, like it's Kanye's fault that he didn't seek help, but like other people's fault. Like it's also the part of like, the media, and it was like the
Mhm.
fans and everything. Like all of this, like we almost to an extent, like never thought about it. Like we never were like, no, I'd be okay if Kanye took like a 6 months, like a year to just like pull back from everyone and just like get legitimate like help and
Mhm.
get like this and that. Like instead we like, people like clowned him on social media. People made fun of him whenever he had a breakdown. People would always like,
Mhm.
make some type of like meme or something out of it or like this and that. And it came to a point where it was almost like it was almost like it was starting to be like how much money can we make off of watching one person
Mhm.
have like a mental breakdown. I don't know if you watch Anthony Fantano, the
That
like
oh, the
the
needle drop?
the needle drop.
Yeah,
So
got
when
it.
he was talking about like the Donda, his review was like, I feel like I'm seeing a very, very
Mhm.
vulnerable personal part of a person's life that I don't need to see. Like I really should not, like there are certain things that like we just shouldn't be knowing about Kanye, and he should be dealing with his in his own like, place and in his own like safe space. And it does make you sort of sit back and you watch this and you see like how devastated he was to when you were like, oh my gosh, like
Y
I was clowning him for like having this mental breakdown. And you're like, but it was a mental breakdown. Like I was really clowning him for that. And that's why I hope that, especially for someone like Kanye, who like does have like such a big platform, who's never afraid to like speak his beliefs, this is one of those ones where I think he could do a lot of good for
Mhm.
raising awareness about like
Of
mental health.
course.
Like I would love to see if that was his next biggest talking point. If like in light of all this and like everything that happens, he dedicated his platform to like seeking mental health. Because I think that's really, really
Mhm.
important. And then you even go, we see it in like the Batman. The Batman is all about watching some guy have a mental breakdown, and people turn around and are like, "Yeah, but he only broke like two people's skulls. I wanted to watch him break four." Like that's not the point of the movie. The point is he's sad and is like hurting other people because he's hurting. Like he was not like you do not watch the Batman to watch him like fight up and like beat up a bunch of bad guys. Like that was not the point. The point was you're watching someone who desperately needs help not get help, but have everyone around him tell him that he really, really needs help.
Yeah, I'm seeing some horrible takes on the Batman, even though I haven't seen it. A lot of people are kind of upset that it's not quippy and full of jokes. Like if you're just watching an MCU movie, there's about at least 15 jokes in the first 30 minutes. A couple of I'm trying to think of one stupid joke, but it's like Ant-Man, stuff like joke characters. Everyone's like, "It's so dark and so broody and so violent." I'm like, it's Batman. He's not gonna be making jokes. The only character that really would be making jokes in a Batman is one, the supervillains because they're insane, 2, Alfred with a sarcastic comment, and 3, probably Robin, but we don't even have a Robin yet. It's like he's a vengeance. He's a dark symbol. He's upset. His parents were killed in front of him, so of course he's not going to be making jokes. He's not going to be looking at the camera going, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, like we're not in like the old Batman. Like I can officially say that like old Batman is like gone. Like old Batman who used to wear like bright blue, like Adam West Batman, like the original. If you want to hit back like to the original like comic book,
Zam,
like,
pow, zoom,
yeah,
all
like,
that's
back to like the basic, like the real Batman. Like that was the real Batman. The real Batman was like really goofy and like wasn't a detective. We've officially entered like new Batman stage, and that's what a lot of people don't want to like grip on. Like they don't want to understand that. Like I'm sorry, but I hate when this happens, and I'm gonna say it. Batman, this Batman is not comic book Batman. The Marvel movies are not the comic book movies. You cannot turn around and be like, it's kind of crazy that like they misinterpreted what Loki is, and it's like he's a person. He's not on a comic book anymore. No matter what, it was gonna be different. And I hate when some people like, I get it. Like, oh, you have to stay close to some of the source material. You can't just be like, okay, here's a character, but we're gonna like completely 180 it. But the other thing you have to understand is when you're adapting a comic book to a movie, why not? Why not? Sure, take this character and be like, we're gonna base this character and then completely 180 it in this and that. I love when they do that because I love how angry it gets people because they're like, well, this isn't exactly like the comic book. And it's like, then read the comic book. You weren't gonna like the movie from the get-go because the movie isn't a comic book. It's based off of. That's it. That's the only liberty that they owe. It's based off of. So I have no problem with understanding the fact that like Batman, comic Batman, was a goofy dude. He was a goofy man who ran around in a bat costume. Now, people want to see more. They want to see that divide between Bruce Wayne and Batman. You know, at what point is it the real Batman? Is it the real Bruce Wayne? At what point do what does Batman mean? And what does it mean to individual people? And that's like the one thing that always gets me so tilted is when people are like, oh, well, I feel like they just didn't like really represent what Batman really was. And it's like, because it's not the comic book. Like there are probably really good, better comic book stories related to that. This is not that. This is something different. They can be like, we're completely changing one of these characters because we're not making something that's the comic book. This isn't real. Like this Batman is not going to affect what he does in like the comic storyline and what he does in like the original timeline universe. This has nothing to do with that. This is just someone who saw the Batman and was like, I have an idea.
Yeah, so I gotta ask, when you said about them flipping the script on characters doing 180s, the first thing that came to mind was, I'm not sure if you've seen it, it came out a couple years ago, Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin, how the Mandarin turned out to be an actor. He wasn't really the comic actor. I'm gonna be honest, I hate that movie so much. I think it's the worst Iron Man movie and probably one of the worst Marvel movies. How do you feel about that? Because that's the most blatant 180 I've ever seen.
I have very like vague of Iron Man 3. Like you said, I don't think it was like the best one. So like I've only seen it. I've seen it less than I've seen the other Iron Man movies. But I do remember like the turn and the twist. And speaking of how I never fact check anything I see on Instagram, I just read it and then say it right back out. Apparently, did you ever see WandaVision?
Yes.
Remember they did the exact same thing, Ralph Boner?
Oh, yeah.
The person in charge of the Mandarin, or the person in charge of doing that twist, was either the same person or got inspiration from the Mandarin thing of being like, we're gonna hype up the greatest thing ever, and then like pulling the rug out from under. Like, not gonna lie, I don't know the Mandarin. Like I don't like, I didn't know the character originally, so like I was kind of like, oh, that's like really strange that they had done that. I just think like there's a difference between like that sucks, and it's also just sucks because it's almost like laughing in the face of like the audience. Like there's blatantly changing a character, and by that I just mean like reinterpreting an old character, but then there's also like directly laughing in the face of the audience. But I feel like if it's done right, like the Ralph Boner thing, I thought was funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I was like, that's hilarious because everyone really was like, like this is it. This is gonna be like the biggest thing, and it was like, no, actually, like, you're just like you just kind of got like pranked. Like like it's almost like they knew exactly what they were doing, and I think like that's the difference is that like with the Mandarin thing, like it kind of almost did feel like a slap in the face. But like like I'll be honest, like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, they ruined the Mandarin. Like no one knows. Like tell me who the Mandarin is. Like but like you can do that and you can be like, oh, I understand that. But I hate when people like me who like really just watch the movies and like will pick up the comics here and there or like they misinterpret. Like I didn't read a comic about the Mandarin. I'm not gonna say that like and I hate when people do that. Like I hate that with a passion when people are like, they messed up the Mandarin. Couldn't tell you a single Iron Man issue with the Mandarin in it. I knew who he was. I knew all about the rings. Like I knew the story, but like I didn't know the Mandarin, so I'm not gonna be like, oh, they ruined it for me because they didn't. Like I didn't start with it.
Yeah. So I will.
That's my thing.
I will throw Marvel a couple bones the whole Mandarin thing because one, unfortunately, the original character from the comics, he's a little taboo because he kind of is like a mockery of Asian people, like exaggerate Asian features and stuff like that. So it's really hard to adapt that into a movie. Two, they did come out like 10 or so years later with Shang-Chi and his father, he does have 10 rings.
Who's really good.
Yeah, who is
and then did a really good job.
Then he's like, no, I'm actually the real Mandarin. That guy, he just stole my name and ran off with it.
Yeah. Like I feel like Shang-Chi almost did like right that wrong. If that, which like it probably was for like a longest time, if that was like the definitive version of the Mandarin, then I can be like, I'm not hurt by it, but I can understand why other people did. The fact that they did right their wrong though, and then proceeded to deliver on a really good, intimidating, probably
the movie
accurate,
was pretty good,
like skilled Mandarin, and then like even went so as far as to have that guy in the movie, and they were like, yeah, like we're keeping this guy like locked up because like he literally just was like an actor, and then he did good in the movie. So I feel like it's just like if it's done with good intent. It like the Mandarin thing, it does feel like a slap in the face. So that's why you can be like, oh, that really hurt. But when they just have something like this character is gonna like look a little different. This character is gonna like there was the one thing when they were like, oh yeah, like Loki is bi, and everyone was like, well, he's not bi in the comics, and it's like, but it's not the comic. Like they can say Loki's bi, and that's okay because like they haven't done anything with that since, and like as long as they continue just to be like he just is. Like, some people are. That's okay, Like life goes on. He just is. It's one thing to like do that, but that's like what I'm talking about. When people are like, you did not exactly cookie cutter out every single individual character. I hate when they do that because it's those same people who turn around and are like, yeah, this was just exactly like the comic books. And it's like, but did you really want that? Like, no, you wanted to see like someone's own interpretation of all of these characters because we would have never gotten the Dark Knight. If Christopher Nolan wasn't like this guy who's really goofy could really work out if he was like dark and mysterious. And Batman just evolved into it. Now the character is known for being dark and gritty. The character was not always dark and gritty. He was not dark and gritty whatsoever. The Joker was literally like a clown.
Yeah.
Was just like a clown who did like gags. Now he's like a clown who's a psychopath. Well, that's not very comic accurate. Like, of course it's not. It's fun, Like, it's a story. They're supposed to evolve and change. That's what makes them a story.
Yeah, and comics have been going on since, like, the dawn of time. Now, going back to Loki, there are actually comics that came out before the Loki TV series that explored his sexuality. Like, he actually has a boyfriend in one of the comics, and the boyfriend's like, asked him, like, you don't really have, like, an orientation? He's like, well, no, on Asgard, it's just, like, it's acts. Like, he's like, it's acts, whereas he sees someone he thinks is attractive, he just simply gets with them. He doesn't really put a label on it.
He's like a shapeshifter too.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I don't know. Like, I just kind of love. Like, that's what it is. People just kind of love, and everyone's got problems.
And also, it's based off of Norse mythology. There is one Loki, like gives birth to like a horse or something like that. Loki is like or a wolf or something like that. Odin rides like an 8-legged horse. Like, dude, like.
Everyone's a little different.
Yeah, everyone, it's all insane. And it's like, to me, Loki's sexual identity shows wasn't like a huge thing. He just said, like, matter of factly, he was like, yeah, guys, women, it don't really matter to me.
Yeah.
He hooks up with a female version of himself. Like,
Yeah, and it's like that's strange. Like that's weird.
makes sense though. The way they explain, he's such a narcissist that
Yeah,
the
like
one person he falls in love with
it's
is
like of
himself.
course it's like you.
It's
I
kind of poetic.
I never could.
You
I've
never
thought
could.
about it. I've probably thought
Everyone's
about
thought
it.
about
I've
it.
probably thought about it too much. Like I'll be honest, like I've probably thought about it too much. But I don't know if I could. Now I don't know if it's like me, but like, all right, what conditions? Hear me out.
All right.
let me
Present your case.
let me get settled, okay? Because I've thought about this.
Oh God.
What factors would have to happen in order for you to date yourself?
Well, I'd have to get rid of some of my physical features.
So first off, woman.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully I don't have a mustache if I'm a woman. Probably, grow out my hair and stuff like that. Uh, maybe I wouldn't be a size 13. That's kind of
Small woman, like a petite woman.
like,
You
okay.
would want would the woman version of you just be like the exact like opposite? Like you'd want like boom, girl, 5 foot, blonde hair, like really, I don't know. Like would you want like a mirror version of you? Cuz I could not date like me. Like I know too much about me to the point where it's like I would need like it couldn't be like someone would be like, here's a clone, we just made them a girl. Because I'd be like, I know exactly what they're thinking of and I hate it. Like, I know everything going on in that brain and I hate it. Like that cannot exist. Like I could never date me knowing the things that I think about. Like I would need like a Loki. Like I would need it to be like completely different,
Okay.
different like timeline to where like we're based off the same source material, but along the way, like two different lives. Like I could never date clone me.
Now, James, I have to ask, if we do clone you and the clone is a female, same haircut or or
I like. I don't know. I guess whatever suits them.
Mhm.
How much control do I have? Because that's the other thing. Like maybe they're living their own life and we just like grow apart. Like I'm for it. What if I'm for it? Like I'm like, yeah, like I could date you, and she like, well, first off, my girlfriend would be like, well, what? But what if she's like, oh, I just don't know, like it's kind of weird. Like I find it strange that you want to date me, and I'm like, no, like I did all this, like I made you, and she like, what if we grow apart? Like that's what I think
Wait,
about, and that's why I'm like, I could never date like clone me, because I'm like, you're thinking the same thing now, and that's weird.
so wait, if you date clone version of yourself, are you cheating on your girlfriend?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to talk this over with her too. Like I'd probably have to be like, I'd be like, okay, is it cheating? Like if it's me though, I'd be like, it's me, but she'd be like, it's not me.
You
Which
just
I
be like
could,
thruple. You gotta be like, I guess go a little unconventional with
yeah,
her.
I'd have to be like, no, 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 no. Like I just want to like, I just need to like see, like I just have to like learn more about me. Like this is just to learn and grow.
Would you be jealous if she started dating like a guy version of herself? Because then I guess that answers your question. If you get jealous,
Wouldn't that just be me?
no, but you're not a guy version of your girlfriend.
Oh, I thought you meant a guy version of my clone, and I was
No,
like, why are you cloning the clone to get a guy version of me?
no.
Oh, if my girlfriend started, oh yeah, 100%.
So then
No.
you can't have a female clone, James, because then you're getting offended. She has male girlfriend.
Is he cool? Like it depends.
Is
How
your
he
girlfriend cool?
I'd like to think so, but I don't know what the guy version of her is. Like my girlfriend's cool, but that's like she's my girlfriend. Like I don't know if like the guy version of her would be cool. Also, like the girl version of me, not cool. Would not be able to hang. Like I can barely hang as a guy. She would not be able to hang. Like all she would do is just complain and like yell, because that's all I do. But I'm just like goofy, so she would really have to nail like being goofy.
No, after I'm thinking about it, I think I would. I think I would date. I would date the female version of myself.
That's awesome.
Because I think I'm I'm on a very weird frequency in my life. I've always have been, and there's really no one on the frequency on the type like how I think except myself.
Oh yeah, like you would need that like
Yeah,
intimate. Like,
I'm my own soulmate.
Oh yeah, that's really narcissistic when you say it out loud. I can see why everyone had a problem with it in Loki. But no, good for you.
Thank you.
I hope I just actually dropped microbiology and disease, so like I'm not gonna be able to help you with that. But if the technology ever does happen, I wish you well. Like I'll
Thank
call
you.
them for you. They're doing don't they have like goats? Like we've cloned sheep. We've cloned.
Yeah,
sheep.
and then
We've
we can clone. I think we're up to kind of cloning organs and stuff like that.
Yeah, or like 3D printing them at least.
Yeah, so I think definitely in I would say 30 years, I can finally meet myself. Like, wait. If I have kids with female clone,
This has been James.
this
WICR. You've been watching Tuned In. I had a lot of fun. We will see you in the next one.
All right.
Everyone, have a good day.
Next Tuesday we're talking more clones. I'm not done with my clone
Tuesday,
self.
the weather is looking like it's gonna snow. Stay safe. Stay careful. Stay inside. Don't talk to strangers.
Talk to strangers. All right, see ya. Okay, got